Good day everyone, this is Dave Pujadas and I'm here to discuss about voltage and current sources. This video is simply a narration of the different types of voltage and current sources with emphasis on differentiating between independent and dependent ones. So stay tuned and watch this video presentation. Please also hit the like and subscribe buttons for updates and more videos. You can also share this video if you find this interesting and worth sharing. Now, the first question is, what is a source? A source is an active circuit element capable of supplying or generating energy which can be passed on or transferred to passive elements in the network or circuit. It can be a voltage generator or a current generator. While voltage generators are most common, as our standby generators and our power plants are examples of those, current generators are less popular, but they exist in both high and low voltage applications. First, let's talk about independent sources. Independent sources, as mentioned earlier, can be a current or voltage source. It is customarily represented by a circular symbol. You can see that in your screens. Remember, if a source is represented by a circular symbol, that's an independent source. The problem now is to know whether it is a current or a voltage one. Now notice this. Voltage source is a circular source with a plus minus sign inside or outside in it. Again, a voltage source is a circular source with plus and minus sign, whether the plus minus sign is inside or outside the circle. Okay, so in this slide you can see there are three voltage sources, three representations of independent voltage sources. The first one, a circle with a plus and minus sign inside in it. This is a representation of a DC generator. Second one is this is a representation of a battery. Third one, this is a representation of a uh, an AC generator, no? An AC generator. Okay, both, oh, all of them, the three of them, they are uh, independent voltage source. In this figure also, in this network, you can see there are three sources. So among these three sources, one is an independent voltage source. This circle here with a plus and minus sign in it. Okay. So meanwhile, if the network you're analyzing is represented by a circular symbol with an arrow in it, that's an independent current source. Again, a source represented by a circle with an arrow in it is an independent source. Now, while independent sources are most common in the industry, dependent sources found its applications to model electronic devices such as transistors and amplifiers. So, how do we uh, know it's a dependent source when you are given with a particular network? Now, dependent sources from the name itself are it, it is some it has a voltage or current which is dependent on some other variables, for example voltage or current of the other elsewhere in the circuit. So customarily dependent sources are represented by diamond symbols. Diamond symbols. So if in your network, the network you are analyzing has a diamond symbol in it, that's surely, that's definitely a dependent source. Now, dependent source is consist of two parts. The first one is the controlling part, and the other one is the controlled part. Okay, so it is also consists of four types. So picture this. There is what we call voltage controlled voltage source. Voltage controlled voltage source, VCVS. We also have current controlled voltage source, or CCVS. Then we have voltage controlled current source, VCCS. And finally, we have current controlled voltage source, CCCS. Okay. Now let's consider the first two dependent sources, the ones highlighted in green in your screens. These are voltage controlled voltage source, or VCVS, and current controlled voltage source, or CCVS. Apparently, both sources are voltage sources, meaning their outputs are in terms of volts, say 100 volts, 200 volts, 220 volts, 400 volts, or perhaps 1000 volts. They differ, however, in the parameters that control their output voltage. The first picture in the screen, which is a voltage controlled voltage source, will have an output voltage that depends on the voltage elsewhere in the circuit. So it is a voltage source whose voltage depends on the voltage elsewhere in the circuit. The second picture, which is a CCVS, or current controlled voltage source, will have an output voltage that depends on the current elsewhere in the circuit. If you see the pattern, the names of the sources say it all. Notice that both sources are represented by diamond, both of which have plus and minus signs inside. So remember, if you have a plus minus sign, that is a voltage source. If it is represented by a diamond, it's definitely a dependent source. So, dependent voltage sources, just like the ones shown in these slides, are sources represented by diamonds with plus and minus signs in it. Finally, let's consider the remaining two dependent sources, the voltage controlled current source and the current controlled current source, or CCCS and VCCS. These are current sources because each of them has arrows inside. And since they are represented by a diamond, they are different sources. Same pattern as the VCVS and the CCVS. Before this video presentation will end, allow me to reiterate some of the key takeaways. First, if the network you're analyzing has a circular source, that is an independent source. If it has a diamond source, it is a dependent source. And to know whether the source is a voltage source or a current source, you have to look for additional symbols. Plus and minus sign tells you it is a voltage source. Plus and minus, a voltage source. An arrow tells you a current source. Arrow represents current source. That's all for this video. Thank you and see you in the next presentation.